Hey guys, it's Chris Lang with Share Your Story, and I'm here with Melanie Balke from the Email Marketers. And what I love about the Email Marketers is that you want to, I don't want to misinterpret, what kind of experience do you want to have with your customers, clients?
So we want to give them a wow experience.
The wow experience. I love that. Well, great. We are actually in your backyard in LA. I think the closest beach is like Venice, right?
Yeah.
Venice, yeah. Very eclectic around this area, right?
Yes, that's a very nice way to say it.
But you have a lovely backyard. I drove up and there's beautiful roses and floral. And then your backyard, you got peaches and limes and lemons. And I was like, how do you run one of the top email agencies in America or the world and still do this? How do you keep?
Yeah.
I mean, this is
it's
amazing.
not me.
Look at this. Look at this.
It is, in fact, my mom,
Okay.
who spends about 5 hours a day when she's here in America. So my mom splits her time between Germany and America.
Okay.
And when she's here, she probably spends about 5 hours a day.
Wow.
She's up earlier than I am
Yeah, I
to
believe
work.
it. You have
I kid
to
you
be.
not.
Yeah.
She's up at like 6 a.m. She's in the backyard. She's planning stuff. She's doing things. She constantly tries to tell me what's which planned, and
Right.
I often forget.
Mm-hmm.
Just recently, she called me and she checked in on the peaches, and I was
Yeah.
like, I have peaches? That's good to know.
Right, right.
So I'm very grateful. I love it.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's nice to walk back here and just probably think of your mom, right? Like, just
Yeah.
be grateful.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's like gratitude for my mom.
Yeah.
Also reminds me of like what an incredible woman she is and
Yeah.
what an incredible woman I came from, that
Yeah.
she can just like do this.
Right.
Like, she could create so much life and love
Yeah.
in a place.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Let's talk about that for a moment. So you said she splits time between Germany and LA. So you're from Germany.
Yes.
Right? Let's talk about that. So
Yeah.
you were born and raised in Germany.
Yes, sir.
How what was that experience like, and how'd you kind of get to LA?
Yeah. Born and raised in Germany. So my dad's German. My mom's Iranian.
Okay.
But my mom left Iran to go to Germany and met my dad. They were neighbors, which
Oh, wow.
was really funny.
Yeah.
And so they kind of fell in love and then got married. And I was raised in Germany. I love Germany. I think it's an incredible place, but I always had a weird sense of wanting to move somewhere else.
Right.
And my dad loved Florida, so we'd go on vacation to Florida a lot. So I told you earlier, but
Yeah.
I've probably seen everything from the tip of the Keys all the way to Palm Beach and Boca
Okay.
Raton
Yeah.
in like minute detail over and over again.
Right.
And I remember we'd go to Best Buy
Yeah.
to buy these DVDs because they were
Yeah.
out earlier in America than we could get them in Germany, and they were cheaper. And I picked up this DVD, which was about surfing in the 60s, and I was like, I love the 60s. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I love the ocean. I don't know why. And that was like one of the most iconic surf movies ever made, and
Yeah.
so I fell in love with that. And
Which was?
The Endless Summer.
There you go. Just make sure get that plugged in.
Yeah. And so fell in love with surfing, and it just kind of spiraled from there. And so I did my first semester abroad during my bachelor's in Hawaii,
Okay.
and I loved that, and it was incredible, and I want to raise my kids there someday. I've
Yeah.
never felt more at home anywhere, and
Yeah. That's
it just
cool.
wasn't a great place for a career. And
Yeah.
then my second semester abroad was in Australia, and I loved that too, but it
Yeah.
felt like a worse version of LA, and I knew LA pretty intimately because my brother lived here.
Okay.
A lot of my mom's side of the family lived here, so we'd come here a lot. And so ultimately I decided, okay, LA it is.
Yeah.
Felt like the best, mix. And I did an internship in New York too, and
Okay.
it was like, I liked parts of that, but LA just felt like the perfect mix of like Hawaii and New York
Yes.
in one.
I think you nailed that on the head. Not that I've been to Hawaii, but like, I could definitely see that. We were talking
Yeah.
about like LA, New York earlier, like, and that's a good way to put it. I haven't
Yeah.
thought about that. So, what did you study in college? What did you study in school? Like, what kind of prepared you to where you're at today?
A business administration.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I got
Yeah.
business administration, and then I did a master's in management. And then in Australia, it was part MBA. So I did the full, very classic business school thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. And talk to me like about, so you moved back to LA. What did you start doing? Like,
So when I first moved here, it was really interesting because when I was in Germany, I had worked in consulting, marketing consulting, and so I loved working in this field where you're servicing clients. I loved how fast-paced it was. I loved how strict it was. But I didn't love that, I worked for really large companies. I didn't love that you brought them a piece of work and information and, guidance, and they maybe didn't even decide to implement it, or you never got to see it. And so I stumbled into a startup project, which was like an app funded by, Silicon Valley, which was a huge thing back then. An app in Germany, like with funding from Silicon Valley. And I loved, like, we would tell them something on Monday, and by Tuesday it'd be done. So I was like, okay, this I like a little bit more. And then when I moved to LA, I was like, okay, it's either going to be I'm going to join an app or I'm going to join an e-com business. And so I joined Department 2B, which was, I always say, if not the first, one of the first e-com D2C furniture businesses, like buy sofas online, unseen, no showroom kind of business. Great founders, learned a lot, came in really as the marketing manager. And someone just posted about this, and they're like, it's funny, when you're a marketing manager, you're kind of everything.
No, I believe that. I live that still.
Yeah. So did that. I really did everything. I had social and ads and managing agencies and organizing photo shoots and organizing SEO and, whatever you can think about.
It is so exhausting.
Everything. Creating the emails, working with the designer. And I did that, which was awesome. But then they required, and I kind of felt like my growth had stunted and it wasn't really going the way I wanted to. And then I went back into the agency world. And then hated, that's not true. I loved my time at that agency. I worked with so many incredible people. I can tell you, like, anyone who's worked at that agency now is doing something absolutely incredible. But I think they hadn't quite figured out they were growing so quickly. That they hadn't figured out the operations piece. Like, how do we fulfill at high quality while we're growing so quickly? Which was a good problem to have, but it led to a lot of churn, and it made me feel really disillusioned with kind of what I was putting my name under. And so I left, and I was like, never doing agency stuff again. And then freelanced a little bit and got more clients, and then suddenly I was like, oh my God, I'm building an agency. I've started hiring people.
So at the agency, you were doing email marketing.
So I started as a growth strategist, which was very generalist. And then
Makes sense.
I built their email department because they were selling email, but they actually had no one who knew how to do email.
What was the platform? What was the ESP?
I mean, predominantly I would say Klaviyo.
Back then?
Yeah.
Still? Okay, cool.
Already Klaviyo.
I didn't know if it was like a MailChimp era.
No, this was already Klaviyo. Like, even at the furniture e-com brand that I worked for, it was already Klaviyo. That was already the... it was already the big boy in the space.
That's cool.
MailChimp had more market share at that time, I would say.
Yeah, they did.
But Klaviyo was definitely already,
for those who knew.
Yeah.
Okay. So you built out the email, and talk about that process for a moment. Like, growth strategist, journalist, knew a little bit of everything. What gravitated you to, like, towards email? Like, was that something like they just needed help with and you gravitated toward it, or you kind of recognized how it could be optimized and you gravitated toward it? Or, like, what was that process for you?
That's a good question. So with the e-com brand, I came in like a typical consultant, and during my interview, I had a 100-page slide presentation about everything that was wrong with their marketing. And so when they hired me, they're like, what of this do you want to fix? And I chose email. And part of the reason I chose email was I love that there is a creative aspect to email. But I also really recognized that they had a high AOV product. They were selling a lot of sofas. They had a lot of customer data. They had a lot of complementary products, like, coffee tables, just as a basic example. But they had coffee tables, lamps, throws, pillows, whatever you want to think about, beds. They had everything. And I was like, why aren't we doing a better job of selling to the people that we already have and that no one trusts this brand and have a product from us than, like, acquiring new customers? So they're like, what do you want to tackle first? And I said email. And then when I tackled email for them and I saw how profitable it is and how much money it can make, I fell in love with it. And I was blown away by it. And so then, for the agency, they really needed someone who did email, but I also liked email. So it wasn't like a problem. And it was kind of weird. Like, I both was very generalist, but I was also doing the email department. Then my manager left, and then I was like, I want his position. So then I got his position, and it was kind of a hodgepodge of me owning a lot of hats. But yeah, I've always loved email. And then with the email marketers, it really was that when I did freelance, I was still doing a lot of services. So it really was like, I can help you manage multiple services as a smaller brand. And I just realized once I started hiring people, I was like, okay, I'm hiring people, so this is not freelance anymore. This is turning into an agency. How do I ensure that none of the things that happened at the previous agency I was at happen again? And I was like, okay, instead of doing 15 services kind of mediocrely, we're going to do one service. We're going to do that one service really well. It's got to be a high ROI service. It's got to be really easily systematizable. It's got to be something I like. And so that turned out to be email.
Talk to me about the name, the email marketers.
Dude, I don't know where it came from. Chris, I had that domain way. Okay.
So you had bought it previously?
Dude, I don't know. I think like one day, first of all, I have like my fractional CMO. He has access to my GoDaddy, Dean. And he hit me up recently. He was like, what is going on in your GoDaddy? I have probably like 40, 50 domains.
Yep, same.
And I don't know. I just bought it on a whim one night, I think. And then now I also own like the paid marketers, the CRO marketers, the creative marketers. So we made it a full stack piece.
I have blendedroas.com if you...
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think I have CAC calculator or something like that. I think I have a couple of good ones. But I think it was just... Okay, so this is a sidebar. I'm a big believer in like meditation and letting the universe... like be woo and let the universe deliver things to you and input to you. And I really think the email marketers was one of those things where like it just like came to me. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna buy this domain. And later I was like, okay, this is a great name. Like it's very on the nose. I wanted it to be. I didn't want which is funny. I didn't want anyone to have to guess what we do when they read our name. Which is funny because you wouldn't guess how many people actually ask me, what do you guys do after they find out our name? But yeah, that's how we came up with that.
Oh, cool. And so, like, kind of talk about, like, the beginning, of that journey. What were some mistakes you made kind of starting off, the agency?
I love that. I think something I talk about a lot, even now when I meet new clients, new prospects, is a big learning that when we started, I thought we could just hire based on value. Which means that like my concept was if I find someone and they're hungry and they have the same values as we do and they're intelligent, then I can just train them. And to an extent, that's very true. But what you learn when you're an agency that's scaling really quickly is you don't actually have the time in the sense of like, not the time in the sense of they can't go through the training, but you don't have the time for them to get the experience they need to get to become the account manager email strategist that you need them to be. So we've found that experience is a really pivotal piece of who we hire now. So anyone that comes to us as an email strategist must have held that position, ideally at another agency, because I want them to know what they're getting themselves into. I don't want someone to come from in-house and be like, oh my God, this is a stressful job. And definitely an email position. So that was, I think, in a sense, that was a mistake that we made earlier, especially when we were scaling really quickly.
Where are you guys at today?
In terms of?
Who you are. In the industry, growth, where you're at today. I mean, how would you describe yourselves, clients you work with? Yeah,
I think, last year was a hard year for us in the sense that I think we hit a growth ceiling. And, I think businesses work in plateaus and ceilings. And sometimes you hit a ceiling and then all your systems and processes start to fail. And so I think we experienced that last year, and that was really hard for us because we are so used to delivering high quality, and that's what we want, and that's the standard we hold ourselves to is very high, honestly. Like there's not a lot of room for slack. But now I look back at that period and I go, oh, that period happened and created who we are now, which is so much better, so much more profitable, better team, better processes, healthier business. And so for asking me who we are in 2025, I think we are the email marketers 2.0. We are a new version of us. We are better than we were before. We're stronger than we were before. We are very much focused on growth. But we're also focused on like growth the right way.
Yeah. What would you say like that you're doing maybe differently than other email agencies to kind of unlock that growth for brands?
I love that. So I think one of the things that I always am really focused on is how do we not just recycle the same playbook?
Right.
Because I think in marketing what happens is, and you can do this with every channel.
Yeah.
Social, Facebook, whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's like there's a playbook. The playbook works.
Right.
Why does the playbook work? Because not a lot of other people are doing it. It's something new. It's pattern interrupt.
Right.
Then everyone jumps onto the playbook. Now the playbook doesn't work as much as it used to because everyone's running the same playbook.
Right.
So for me to my team is like, how do we, one, run new playbooks, be innovative, test, and do new stuff?
Yeah.
How do we become the people in the space that people look to where they go, oh, have you heard what the email marketers tested and found that is really cool that we can do? So how do we stay on top of that?
Right.
And then I think the second piece, and I think we forget that sometimes as marketers in general, it doesn't matter what you're in, is like marketing is a human-based thing.
Right.
And humans are logical at their core.
Right.
So again, I talked about Alchemy, the book.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it because it talks about this. And I'll give you an example, and this is what I tell my team. They did a test, and it's like, I don't know what airport it was, and people were complaining, and they're like, dude, it takes so long to get our luggage. We hate this. We have to wait like 25 minutes. This all sucks. This airport's terrible, whatever.
Right.
And the airport was like, okay, so to get them their luggage faster is going to be like X, Y, and Z millions.
Yeah.
We're not going to spend that. What if we just like make them walk a longer route to the luggage belt so that they won't have to wait as long?
Oh, wow.
And so they just rerouted people. And so the luggage took just as long to get to the luggage belt, but people just had to walk longer. So by the time they got to the luggage belt, it took like 5 minutes for the luggage to come. Satisfaction goes through the roof.
I've never realized that.
Dude, and so this is what I tell my team. I'm like, at its core, marketing is a people business. You don't have to be logical. You just have to understand people. Do you understand the customer that you're working with? And I'll tell you, Chris, a lot of brands we work with, they don't understand their customer because they forget this piece. They get into the data, the numbers, They don't talk to their customers. So the second piece that I think we do really, really well is like, if you were to work with us, we're not going to take at face value what you say your customer, like who you say your customer is and why they love you guys and whatever.
Right.
We're going to do our own piece of research.
Yeah.
And we're probably going to come back to you and we're probably going to say, Chris, 50% of what you said really is true, but the other 50%, look at what we researched.
So, all right, I'll have to riff on this for a moment, okay?
Yeah, I know. Please.
Because I'm involved in multiple brands as a brand owner. I have an agency, now involved at Sendlane as well.
Congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thank you. But also, what I'm realizing as like the self-awareness becomes more evident with each position I'm in, I think brand owners, and I've been saying this to my agency team, I think brand owners are wrong most of the time.
I did not say that.
What's interesting about
it was
that
not me.
is we're very emotionally attached to our brands. We have the reasons of why we started the brands, why we love the brands, but that's not necessarily why the customer loves the brand or found the brand or whatever the XYZ testing is that you say you do your own research. I'm realizing that I'm more of the bottleneck when it comes to like optimizing growth and revenue for my brands. And I'm finding myself taking a step back, asking more questions and trying to find people who are have more specific knowledge than I do in a certain industry.
Respect that. I mean, listen, I ask myself all the time, do I actually really know why people want to work with us? And I think I try to take as much knowledge as I get from a lot of, conversations with people, like sales calls in particular, and try to disseminate that to my team. Like, I can't tell you how many times I hear people like, oh, the team we're working with is not proactive. It feels like we're still driving the account, things like that. But I always wonder, like, I always second guess myself too.
Right.
I was like, do I really know
Right.
my customer? And I always toy about starting an e-commerce brand again.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing is if I did that, it would be so customer centric. Like, I think
Right.
the first thing I would do before starting a brand is I
Right.
would be like, this is what I think the product is.
Right.
This is what I think it's solving for this customer.
Right.
Then I would just go talk to the customer, like 20 of them, 30 of them, 40 of them. And like, have you ever read The Mom Test?
No.
Okay, so it's a fantastic book. It's this thin.
Yeah.
It's I think it should be required reading
Yeah.
for anyone. And it really helps you talk to your customers. It's called the Mom Test because if you go to your mom and you're like, Mom, I have this business idea. What do you think? Your mom's always going to be like, yeah, sure. I love it. I'd buy.
For sure.
But it helps you talk to even your mom in such a way that, you would figure out whether it's actually a viable idea. And so that's what I would do. Yeah, but long story short, I think you're onto something.
Yeah, and I think too, like, not to geek out too much, but like even as an email marketer, because I am an email marketer, like having to like think of strategy of campaigns, segments, design, organizing photo shoots, doing like market research internally, like, on the website, going through testimonials, reviews, looking at the Facebook group. I'm realizing I'm the bottleneck in a lot of ways. And I think that's where it's, going back to that, like, I think I'm more wrong than I'm right a lot of times,
Yeah.
And so it's just, like I said, it's sort of been a long-term coming, but not a lot of brand owners get there, that's the reality, and sometimes brand owners, I don't know why we're going off on this topic. I guess it's just a little bit of self-discovery for me, but also at the same time, like, just encourage you, like, I find that sometimes brands will not necessarily listen. They'll just find an agency that will do what they want to do.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever kind of experienced that.
No. I mean, I've literally had brands come to us and go, we want the agency to be the one leading this project. We feel like we're coming up with all the ideas, and then we work with them. And I'm like, oh, I see. Like, the thing was that you are constantly sending new ideas every day that then your agency feels obligated to execute on, and then they can't run their playbook. And then we've had to learn over time to be like, hey, you sent us 30 things, okay?
Right.
We love all these 30 things, but we have this capacity for this month.
Right.
Here's how we've actually, ranked them in terms of priority, and here's our plan for the next 90 days, what we want to tackle when. How do you feel about this? And that was a big thing for us to just be like, oh, like, especially when you work with founders, they
Right.
have so much in their head,
Right.
so much.
Right.
Or you work with like a director of e-commerce,
Right.
and that director has a really thin team and they want
Right.
to do a lot.
Right.
That's become really helpful.
Yeah.
But, I think, listen, I still think about, it's funny because now my team is doing more stuff even around marketing and how we show up in the space.
Right.
And I've noticed, like, okay, now we have slight disagreements on like how I want the brand to show up, how they think we should show up. And it's kind of cool. I actually
Yeah.
kind of like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I always try to remind myself, like, I could be wrong.
Yeah, I just, I don't know. I mean, I've had brands that, have had success, but then also that success has trickled down because I feel like I held on to certain ideas where the people around me wanted to take it to another level. And in hindsight, they may have been right.
Yeah.
And I was wrong because the proof is always in the revenue. And if it's dropping month over month, I think that's a huge red flag.
Sure.
And so that's what I'm saying. I've been in that position as a brand owner where it's like,
I was just going to add.
yeah.
The opposite of that is just like, how they talk about Henry Ford and he would tell his engineers like, oh, I need this car and it needs to have, I don't quite remember the quote properly, so please, no one judge me. But he was essentially like, it needs to be a V8 or something like that, or a V6. And they're like, it's impossible. And he'd just send people back and be like, no, you're going to make it work. And like his engineers were like, no, it's like not possible. And then he was like, no, it's possible. And then eventually they made it possible. Or like, honestly, even you look at Elon Musk and everything he's
Steve
been
Jobs,
doing.
Elon Musk. Yeah.
there is also a level of like insane conviction and going against the grain. And
Right.
and I listen, I always ask myself that. Is this a moment of having insane conviction and going against the grain? Or is this a moment of actually listening to the feedback the world is giving me?
Right.
And I guess what you're saying is like dropping revenue month over month is pretty clear feedback.
Yeah, and I think that's just kind of it, right? Like the proof is always in the numbers
Yeah.
for what we do.
Yeah.
And so again, I don't know. I probably have started 7, 8, 9, 10 companies,
Yeah.
and I think lack of focus is something that entrepreneurs kind of lack sometimes.
we're all squirrels on uppers.
Yeah. but but what's funny is that as you get older, like you were saying, and before we kind of started chatting, was like, you have to sort of go on defensive and kind of protect what's working,
Yeah.
and what's not working. And so that helps in that context. So let's talk about email marketing today.
Is dead.
I know that's been like the last 5 years, right? 10 years, 15 years.
Yeah.
But let's talk about like where it's going. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're like me, who's an avid ChatGPT user, I've never seen a software evolve in real time. It's like self-learning.
It's insane.
The updates are daily,
crazy.
hourly. I've never experienced a product like this in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, Apple was sort of the closest in its heyday.
Yeah.
Not anymore, but like, when Steve Jobs was around, Apple felt like it was at least every quarter, innovating, which was impressive. But now it feels hourly.
Yeah.
How is this going to change, email marketing?
I think email marketing is dead has been said forever, and we
Right.
literally have stickers with little zombies on them, and we're
Right.
like, email is not dead. But I think email is dead to the way, in the extent that the way we know email is dead.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of things happening. I think, one, you have deliverability is getting a lot stricter.
Oh man, it is so tough now.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like, everyone's just landing in spam, and I'm like, I want to get these emails. I want to get these
The
emails.
new Apple update is brutal too.
It's gnarly. So, deliverability.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, Facebook ads has gotten way more expensive. So brands are
Right.
now they have to rely on email. I know brands that have scaled to $100 million.
Yeah.
I kid you not.
Yeah.
I can't name them, but it really exists. If you guys think I'm joking, I could show you.
Yeah.
And they didn't even have an abandoned cart flow set up.
Yeah.
Because ads
Wow.
were just working so well. And so
Right.
now that doesn't work anymore.
Right.
That's not real anymore.
Right.
I mean, we'll see what happens now with the whole tariffs in China and
Right.
Temu and all these other guys being out of
Right.
the ad space.
Right.
Because they were big spenders.
Yeah.
But that's not real anymore. So you have stricter deliverability, way more competition in your email inbox.
Mm-hmm.
So those two alone are a problem because you need to send more to even get seen.
You do.
Right?
And
People
it's literally when you audit an account, it's the
Literally.
number one thing too. They don't send enough.
Yeah, like people get 150 emails a day.
Yeah.
If it's not interesting to them in the subject line, they're going to delete it.
Right.
So that's one thing. But if you send them too many emails they don't engage with, you're going to start landing in the spam folder.
Right.
Once you're in the spam folder, it's a whole other problem. So that's one
Right.
piece of the pie, right?
Right.
So email is just getting harder, period.
Right.
But I think the other piece is AI.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, I don't know to the extent it's going to affect email because
Right.
it has been so rapidly evolving. But I think what it's going to do on the one side is something we're going to love as a consumer. It's going to make, like, do any of you guys love getting emails? Like, I'm an email marketer. I don't really like reading my emails, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more, I guess, if I'm going to be honest, I'm just looking for, like, emails from my partners
Yeah.
or, like,
like the info you want,
info
right?
that I need. Yeah, I'm not
But if-
looking at, brands necessarily, no.
If we were at a conference here and I'm like, does anyone here like receiving emails?
Mhm.
And I do this sometimes,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
no hands will go up.
Yeah.
And so I think from one side, AI is going to make it easier for us to get through our emails
Yeah.
with summarization
Yeah.
and categorization and auto replies, and all that already exists, by the way.
Right.
Like, you can get emails and there's auto replies and they filter it based on your behavior. They
Yeah.
auto archive, they auto unsubscribe.
Yeah.
All that's going to happen. That's also going to make email harder for us as marketers.
Right.
Even though it's better as a consumer.
Right.
But, there's also a lot of brands that you don't engage with for months that maybe once you see an email, you start buying again.
Right.
We're going to have to figure out how do we get those people, which I think is
Right.
just going to be more about segmentation and personalization. And so on the other flip side, I think AI is going to help a lot with that. And my vision ultimately for email is that it's really going to be one-to-one. So it's going to be the email you get about our lemon sale is going to be different to the email that I get about our lemon sale, different from everyone else, different language, maybe even a different offer, although I always think that's a little sketchy, giving people different offers.
It's interesting playing around with that,
Yeah, like how airlines give you different, give different people different offers. I think it's kind of sketchy and kind of messed up.
Like Amazon too,
Yeah, but like different timing, different, messaging, different imagery. Like maybe for you it's a guy holding lemons, maybe for me it's a woman holding lemons. I think that's where email is ultimately going to go and develop. And of course, like what we talked about earlier too, like as an agency, I think the creation of the content is going to be less relevant than the strategy behind it. So I think that's how agencies really need to adapt, because I mean, you were the first one who I saw did it on Twitter where you're like, I just made an email with ChatGPT and I'm going to send it out just like this.
Yeah, it was kind of viral. I didn't really expect that reaction, but what happened was I had people in my DMs. I had some like other like email agencies in my DM, founders, and they're like, how did this do? It was tracking revenue versus the last 5 campaigns. Looked kind of poor. Attribution, I think, is like, I think I have like 24 or 48 hours is where I kind of like to, look at attribution revenue. It ended up performing just as well as everything else.
Yeah. I mean,
which was just wild. And even that AI image that I created, like that AI generated email, there was like imperfections that, ChatGPT does. Like it doesn't really spell things correctly sometimes. I left it in there, but on purpose. I just had to find, and this is my own personal brand.
Yeah.
Like every time, like I'm a brand guy, like I get it, I understand it. I just had to know, because I also have a theory with email when we talk about personalization, like, because when people struggle with like, what to send, how to send, I think it's more important. I think it's just showing up a lot of times. I think personalization.
I would agree.
Yeah. I mean, personalization is important, trust me. Like, but kind of the, like for me, like was the conviction was like, I think it's more important just to kind of land in someone's inbox. And that kind of was like a little bit of like an A/B test of like, I think it's more important just to send more email.
Yeah. I mean, I believe that to an extent. I think showing up is half the battle, quite frankly.
Half the battle, yeah. I think offer trumps everything too, promotion. I mean, the other day, just this week, I launched a pre-order, biggest email of all time. Yeah. Revenue was great. ROAS was great.
Yeah.
And it was because of the product, and the promotion. So it's, not just sending
launches
more.
are fire for email.
Yeah.
Launches is the best.
Yeah, so.
I think showing up really is half the battle.
Right.
Like in being in front of people's faces.
Right.
At the current moment that they have the need and are ready to buy.
That customer consideration cycle.
I think the other thing too, though, where I will play devil's advocate, and I know you think the same way I do because you just mentioned it, is the brand building piece. So I wish there was a better way to measure brand building. But quite frankly, I even think all these like, share a mind, whatever metrics, the big ones like Coca-Cola use, they're somewhat fluffy and not really helpful. I think there's so many brands. Okay, so We're Not Really Strangers.
Right.
Is a good example. I talk about them in a ton of podcasts, but they're essentially like a card game, and they did SMS for a really long time where the card game's about building intimacy, and they would just send really deep questions like, who are you overthinking tonight? Do you think they're overthinking you too? And I would get these texts, and I'd be like, it'd be like 6 p.m. and like, hey, Bessie, just want to let you know I'm proud of you. And I'm like, who is this? And then I was like, we're not really strangers. And that was a great brand play move. And they actually built such a huge SMS list that they had to make it a paid service. So what that told me was like, great brand play, great following. People got really into the brand. They wanted to follow it. Didn't have direct ROI because they had to make it a paid service. If enough people actually bought the product, then they would be like, whatever, we can send this many SMS. So I'm also a big believer in the brand piece, right? And granted, like I don't think like brand awareness is the most important thing, especially not for D2C brands, where really it is about like you're fighting for survival and it's about ROI. But I do think sometimes email also plays a big role in that. And so we love doing a lot of like just value content. Like, can I just send you something that doesn't ask anything of you,
I try to do that a lot. Yeah.
Like, can I just like make you like this brand
Yeah.
without asking anything in return?
Yeah.
Can we build a relationship?
Yeah. Yeah. The performance is not always there for me, but the desire to keep doing it, I think it's like, just again, showing up, education. I think
Yeah.
education's a huge part. Like, I don't have to like run a sale every time. Like, I
Yeah.
just also want you to know maybe what other products we have, or, why we do it this way, or, why it's, processed this way. We just want to educate. And I think that's important. I don't think it's done enough. I think I just like promo. Like, I mean, there's tons of brands that just run deals every day.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's necessarily wrong. I just think it's important. Like, what story are you trying to share?
Yeah.
And I've seen it work, on a personal level. So, okay. So thank you for inviting us to your backyard.
Of course.
This has been amazing. But like, let's give like some quick insights, some quick tips, kind of your top 3 things to optimize your account. Let's just give the listeners a little bit of like, okay,
top 3 things for
top
email
3
right now.
For email,
okay,
or
cool.
SMS. You can mix it up.
That was going to be my first
yeah.
one. I think my top number 1 for retention right now is don't sleep on SMS. Dude, so many people, they don't want to do SMS. And I'm like, I get it. You think it's annoying. You hate receiving SMS. But my question's always like, do you like money?
I said the same thing this morning on a call.
Yeah. If you like money,
right,
send SMS. If you hate money, don't send SMS.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
Like, it's honestly, like I always say, for 2 years I've been saying, it's the wild, wild west.
Yeah,
it's like when no one really did email yet.
Yeah.
And it's still true.
Right.
So send SMS is my number 1 tip. Like,
Yeah.
get over yourself, really.
Right.
Do it smartly. Deliver value.
Yeah.
Don't spam people.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
Yeah.
So really focus on SMS. I think it's super necessary and supplement of email. That's I think a tip I have. And then number 2 is like, if you increase your sending frequency, remember that you don't have to send to the same people all the time.
Right.
So like, really think about segments and making it more personalized.
Right.
And don't be afraid to do that, because
Right.
personalization increases conversions.
Right.
Makes people feel really
Seen.
more addressed to.
Yeah.
And then really the third thing is like, right now, I honestly, it's not an email tip, but if you're not fully immersed in AI and what AI can do for you or your business or email and SMS, you really should be, because there's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. This is, I think, the 4th episode.
Yeah.
So we're trying to like find the voice here and understand, like, and I'm trying to like intros, outros. I'm kind of like thinking like the outro should be like, what's the one thing that you hate about DTC Twitter? I don't know if that should be like
that.
like,
I love that.
But like, I just wonder, like,
I love that.
I wonder if we should end on that.
No,
like,
that's good.
Let's talk about DTC Twitter.
Okay, I'll tell you both. I'll tell you what I love about DTC Twitter.
I like that. Because I love it too.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm on it. So
I love about DTC Twitter that you get connected with people.
Okay, yeah.
Like, I mean, like, that's how we got connected,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's so cool. Like, there's a real community there, and it's very knowledgeable people, and they're very smart. And honestly, like, everything I learn about AI comes from Twitter, and then,
Same.
like we talked about it, like 10 days later it lands on LinkedIn or something.
Yeah.
So I love that. It's like innovative people, forward-thinking people, and there's a community there. And I actually think, despite what I'm going to say next, people really are there to help each other.
I do believe that. Yes.
What I hate about DTC Twitter is like, why does only the spicy stuff get engagement?
Oh, I know.
It's like, only when I shitpost, excuse my language, or say something like, whatever I say has to be like really black or white, right? It can't have the nuance. If it has the nuance, no one cares.
Yeah.
Unless I say it black or white, no one cares. It has to be super black or white, so then people can fight in the comments.
Yeah. Feed the algo.
That's how the algo works. And that I don't like that. I don't know. Maybe we can just hug each other every now and then.
Yeah. No, it is so true. And but yeah, I think I followed you from a spicy take.
Yeah.
I
had one that went really viral.
I think that was it. I think
people really hated.
I disagreed with it.
Yeah?
I think so. I think you mentioned something about brand owners. But maybe with my new enlightened self-awareness of brand ownership is not always correct. And maybe I should go back and read that.
You know what the funniest one was? I'll tell you guys.
Okay.
One time, my boyfriend, he like was looking for natural deodorant forever.
Okay, yeah.
And he just could not find good natural deodorant. And my friend runs a brand, and he found his deodorant, and he
Yeah.
loved it. No rash. It actually
Nice.
worked. It smelled good.
Mhm.
And then he went on the website, and he tried to order it.
Mhm.
And it had, like, a minimum order amount of $70.
Oh,
Otherwise,
wow.
it was, like, $10, $15 shipping or something
Yeah, yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah.
And he was like, I'm not going to buy that. And I was like, this is the only deodorant for
Right.
months that you've been looking
Right.
for. You're not going to buy that? He's like, not
You're
going to
gonna
buy
use
that.
it all year. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
gonna
not
go.
gonna
You'll
buy
spend
that.
$70. Yeah.
So I posted about that on Twitter, and I was
Yeah.
like, the whole story. And
Yeah,
then I was
yeah.
like, there's a lesson in here about free shipping.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Sean Frank from Ridge retweeted me and said, "What? Please don't do this." And then I was like, okay, dude.
Wow.
So then we talked in the comments, and he was like, yeah, but most people lose money by doing this. And I was
Right.
like, well, I mean, like, I can't help most people that are
Yeah.
stupid. I didn't say
Oh.
lose money. I mean, I didn't say
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know, I didn't realize I needed to say, like,
Yeah.
you know, your product has to be profitable to
Yeah.
offer free shipping.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was funny, and I was like, holy shit, Sean
Yeah.
Frank retweeted.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was a spicy take.
Yeah, yeah. You got a few, and you're a good follow. So where can people follow you?
Yeah, Twitter, Melanie Balke, LinkedIn. We're starting up our Instagram, so we'd love more people to
Nice,
follow the email
nice.
marketers on Instagram. We're doing a good
Perfect.
job there. A lot of my video content's going to be more there than Twitter.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's been pretty much it. Theemailmarketers.com.
Awesome. Well,
Is our
thanks for sharing your story.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.